Okay.
Yeah. So first of all, I would like to thank all of our audience that we are keeping them with us during all this long day. And also, I would like to thank Sakalima Sikanda, who will be interviewed now for the next 40 minutes or so. I know that Sakalima has a lot of things to do, so we'll try to make it short and to the point. Sakalima is a founder of a company called Metamorphic AS or Metamorphic. I like the name, and I will tell you why I like the name. But first, could you please introduce yourself? From where you are? Are you based here in Norway or in another country? Or
super. Yes, I'm. My name Sakalima is unusual, I guess, in Norway and everywhere. In fact, it's a Zambian name. I was born in Zambia. My father is Zambian on the Copper Belt, which is a major mining area of the world. And my mother's Canadian, so I'm half Canadian, half Zambian. And I got into this field, I guess, from a young age. I used to collect rocks as a kid because the minerals being transported to the mine would fall off the trains going by, and I started collecting rocks at a young age. I wanted to become a geologist, and it wasn't a direct path, but eventually I did become a geological engineer. But rather than starting off in the mineral industry, I spent some time during some internship programs in various branches in the oil industry, groundwater, hydrogeology, government, remote sensing, various things. But essentially, the oil business became, I would say, the biggest part of my career path, historically speaking. Though I did do some work in the mining industry at the early stage. I essentially, that's my background. I'm a geological engineer. I moved in and out of the oil field, motivated, I would say, largely by it's a very technically interesting field. It's fascinating. The way it works is fascinating, and they pay very well. There's no doubt about it. But also, I also left the oil field twice, partly because I wanted to do something that would make me feel better in terms of trying to contribute to solving the problems of climate change and other issues. The first time was after my PhD. I left and started to work in the geothermal industry, doing a postdoc in geothermal energy. And then after that, I came to Norway on a contract to work back in the oil field on a technology which held the promise of being quite revolutionary. It was a technology that was essentially trying to build subsurface drones to use for subsurface exploration rather than exploration oil rigs. So this was a way of getting involved in the project, which was really technically fascinating and which would kind of clean up the oil industry. So that's my background. Ultimately, I got into entrepreneurship because of the crash in the oil field in 2014. Mm-hmm. That sort of started the slow decline of that company that I was involved in. And ultimately that company closed or got bought out. And then I decided, well, I can stay in the oil industry, or I can try to do something, taking some of the learnings that I've had from the oil industry in particular, and apply them to the mineral industry, because the mineral industry is absolutely critical for this green energy transition. And there's a lot of learnings in the petroleum sector that I feel could be used with some tweaking and some innovation to make things a whole lot better. That was the first step. So the first thought was to develop a keyhole mining system, similar to directional drilling. We were going to be looking at keyhole mining using a downhole tools functionally. And that was where we started. And since then, things have evolved as they do in innovation and in companies. Yeah.
Okay. Now I will tell you why I like the name of Metamorphic. Actually, I am a metamorphic petrologist.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is why I like the word metamorphic. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So and I will get from this metamorphic, because your background from what you said is mainly in oil sector. And
Yeah.
now you in the mining. And as a geologist, I can say to the people, it's sort of, both of them are geology, but somehow different way of thinking or different way of study. So in oil industry, you rely mainly on geophysics and you rely on things like this. But in metamorphic study or mining sectors, you do different things in order to define your mining activity. So you said that you moved from the oil to the mining in after 2014, right? After
Well,
this.
technically it was 2017, but I started thinking about making the transition, what I wanted to do after, in around 2014. That's when I started thinking with,
Yep.
how could things be done better?
Yeah. This will link me to one question. What is the age of Metamorphic company? Your company, is it new? Is it young? Is it
Metamorphic itself is fairly young. It's 20, I think it's 2017. But as I said, the ideas of wanting to do things, being driven to make a change, I guess that's the way to put it. That I've been working towards, striving towards for longer, because I feel like a lot of people feel stuck within the confines of what they see available to them on the job market, actually. And I think a lot of people are faced with the, making a moral decision. A lot of people will end up in the oil and gas industry, not necessarily because they want to, but because that's what's available and that's what pays well.
Yep.
And I think you see this. It takes a lot of guts and support to actually make the decision to do something on your own. And there's a lot of support in the Norwegian system, but there isn't a lot of support in new industries. And I'm sure this topic will come up, but a lot of the green sector, innovation in the green sector, is very capital intensive. And this is that's one issue that I'm sure we'll come back to, is the capital intensity of trying to start a project, which historically there was a period, I think around 2014 or so, maybe a bit earlier, the 2010s actually, when green technology was very popular at first. There was kind of a wave, a bubble of sustainable technology. And that kind of collapsed because I think a lot of people found out that the venture capital model, the startup, the software model, let's say the software company model, doesn't apply for a lot of technology-based heavy industry type startups. It's not we can't turn around and build a mine in 3 years. It's not something that can be done. You can't build an industrial robot in 3 years. So it's I think that's still maturing, but we'll get back to that. I think I got off track there, so I'll see you next.
Now you this is your interview. You can you can go off the track as you like. Actually, I like the idea that you present just in a few seconds ago, that people are normally try to find job opportunities in our field, for example, in oil and gas. But you start to think outside the box. You create your opportunity by yourself. Yeah. So I like this way. This is unclassical way to do, like create your opportunity by yourself, try to establish something and open the door for others.
Yeah. And I guess just quickly going back on track, the name Metamorphic does, it is, as listed on our webpage, it's a response to, to pressure, increases in pressure and temperature. This is the basic idea. This is what we're trying to do. This is why the company was formed, because I had personal pressure to try and do something. There is pressure on industry. There's pressure on all of us to do something. So we have to literally metamorphose into we have to create a new way of doing things. And that's the name.
Okay. So Metamorphic is not related to the rocks, but related to
It is.
philosophical concept that like we are under pressure, we need to do something.
It's both. It works on several levels. We are under pressure. We're under increasing temperature. And the rocks we were looking at, these serpentinites for carbon capture, etc., these are also metamorphic rocks. So coincidentally, it works on.
Yep, for both level.
Yeah.
Yep. So did you make your PhD in Africa or here in Europe?
My PhD was in Canada. I'm half Canadian, so all my university was in Canada. I did my PhD in Dalhousie in Halifax. I did my postdoc in Switzerland. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I would like to return to Metamorphic company again. It's a new company, so it's I think 4 or 5 years old company, something like this. Do you have project now running?
We have several projects, and it's interesting that the topic that we had for Arctic, the topical conference we had the other 2 weeks ago, was it? In 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, yes.
Yeah. That was very topical for us because we have several mineral prospects within Norway, and one of the most, I would say that our crown jewel is in Lebesby, northernmost Norway, and we faced a conundrum where this is a project where we're looking to develop a potentially very large nickel cobalt resource, which also contains minerals that can be used for carbon capture. And we were trying to develop a process where we would essentially quarry the rock and consume all the rock, convert it all into products, thereby minimizing mineral waste, etc. But the site is in an area of Finnmark, which we are running into some, let's say, land use conflicts or land use questions, which are classic in northernmost Norway and Northern Europe. And we are having to make the decision as to how much we want to pursue this project, because we are sincere when we take into account environmental and social concerns. There is always going to be land use conflict. Mines don't, or projects don't come into creation in a vacuum. There's already somebody there. There's already people using the land, and there's important questions about the environmental impact of operations. Even if you make them as small as possible, you're going to have some impact. So we've had some, let's say, feedback from the
local people,
pro and contra groups, and we're right now in the process of evaluating what we think the best thing for us to do is. So we're trying to gather in, let's say, stakeholder feedback on that. But we have that one main prospect. We have then several other ones all the way to southern Norway now. So I don't know how to say. There are different stages of development, but that one is perhaps, that one's very close to our heart. So we hope something can be worked out. It's a good project.
Okay, but you see there is something can be done.
From the
feedback that you got.
From the feedback that we've got, we have, I would say, we definitely have to whittle down the project. I mean, it is a situation where this site, there's a mountain, and the mountain is very prospective, and the highest grade, most obvious target on a technical level is this large mountain.
So it's a holy mountain, right?
It's a holy mountain, and so therefore we cannot, and we don't want to drill there. It's sort of exploring there doesn't make any sense from a business point of view. Maybe technically that's where the easiest place would get things to get minerals would be, but if it's a holy mountain and we can't access it, we can't access it. We have to respect that. So we're now trying to find other areas within the region, within the prospect, that are also highly prospective. They're not going to be as attractive from a technical perspective, but they'll be more attractive from a social perspective. That's what we're evaluating right now.
Yes.
So, going back to interdisciplinarity, we have to evaluate not just where the rocks are the most attractive. We have to evaluate where's the biological impact going to be most severe, where's the environmental impact most severe, where's the social impact going to be most severe. And then fundamentally, to get a project off the ground, it has to make economic sense as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it may be the case that all of these factors, once you take into account the biology, the social factors, maybe it no longer makes economic sense. And that's just the way things go. And I think that's a proper accounting. It shouldn't be the case where just extracting, developing the most monetarily attractive option is the one that always gets to go forward. That's not balanced development.
I would like to highlight this point actually, Sakalima, and we will return it back in 5-10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That if you would like, you are working in mining sector,
mm-hmm.
but to open a mine, you need to looking for economic impact, would like to looking for environmental impact, for social impact, for biological impact. So it's not a simple process.
No.
It's a lot of things together. So I would like to return to this point, but just after one question more, I think, or maybe 2 questions more. So is Metamorphic, this is the first company for you?
It's technically the second. Metamorphic owns this company, Ravel S. That was the one that was set up to develop basically an endoscopic mining system. That was the first. That was a very technology-focused company where we had these. You're looking at using drilling technologies to basically endoscopically mine high-grade, narrow deposits, and the idea is still alive, but we just found it very difficult to fund. So we just sort of have backburned it. It's sitting as an idea until we get enough funds ourselves to push it forward. And most of the people on the team involved in the company are geologists, so we don't have the in-house competence to build a very technically advanced robotic drilling system fundamentally. So.
Okay, actually, you are pushing us to second part for this one, because you said just now, it's a great idea. You have a great idea for this company, but because you don't have, or people who are working within this company, all of them are geologists, and they don't have the competence to establish or to start the work.
Yeah.
Can you reflect about this? So I think this means that you lose some time to establish the company, and then you can't move it on because you have only experience from geologists.
Yeah, it's been interesting because if we had hired, we're in this peculiar situation where we were trying to take technology from the oil and gas industry and apply it to mining. And it was novel technology for the oil and gas industry, for that matter. We faced the challenge that many, let's say, roboticists, many people in that field are relatively risk averse in terms of the engineers, the core team. And also there were very, very few people who have knowledge of both let's say the boundary conditions. I'm just getting very technical about the project now, the boundary conditions under the ground, the subsurface conditions, and not just working within a tunnel, but working within a borehole, a wet, hot environment. And designing robotics in that kind of setting is kind of a niche skill. And so it was very difficult to find people who would do that within the context of a startup. It would have been much easier if we'd had a lot of funding. And that leads to the second question. We got up to a design stage eventually, but then to build these things is capital intensive, and that's where it really got bogged down. Because if we had team members, let's say a lot of systems design engineers, etc., on board with us with an experienced track record, and then perhaps we could have attracted, more funding. But we were, truth be told, unsuccessful in that endeavor. And maybe we will be in moving forward, but it's very challenging. That was very challenging.
Yes. So if we try to translate this in terms of money, so like you establish the company, you hire geologists, and you start to work together, and you almost reach the stage of designing. But after that, you find that you need to hire people to do the work from this step. So how much time and how much money you spend in the preparation to reach to this step?
I would say we spent, it was under $1 million. Most of the work was done basically pro bono. It was pro bono work. It was colleagues who were doing this in the hope that they would get some return. And I'm talking about the annelid idea, not metamorphic. It's been about $1 million. That was about $1 million, and 2-3 years of working to try. And we got to the design stage, but then, you know, we could advance the design, but really there was no point in testing unless we started building. I mean, you have to start building to test the designs, and that's just expensive. It's very expensive.
Okay, yeah. And you said million krona or million euro?
Krona, yeah.
Krona. So just for people who are not from Norway, million krona is almost 100,000 euro.
Yeah,
something like this.
Yeah, and that was a lot of personal sacrifice and families, and you know, so it's not an easy thing. And when I had to make the decision at some point, you know, we can keep pouring money into this, or we can have to back burner and look at a different idea. So, I mean, being an entrepreneur, the money side is not. Don't do it if you're expecting to get rich fast. It's not gonna. It may work for you, but I think statistically, it's not what you should be doing if you want to get very wealthy fast. Yeah.
Actually, this will bring me to a point, a comment. Actually, not a question, just a comment to be considered in the further discussion with our audience today. That you have spent time, not only you, but you and your colleagues, and you spend almost 1 million krona, 100,000 euro, in a good idea, but for some reason you couldn't pass the barrier in front of you.
Yet.
So yet, of course, yet. And the point here that first, to pass this barrier, you need technical people. You need to get people who has other skills. So if we assume, for example, the set of the geologists who established this work together, who was at the beginning of the company, they invest their time in order to work with this company. If we say that this group has the skills that is needed to pass this barrier, I think at this stage you will be in a different place.
Yeah, I think a lot depends on the team. A great deal depends on the team. And I think it's true, if we had a, for lack of a better word, a savvy business development partner, things probably would be different, because it was a really good idea. There was definitely, in our experience with regard to Norway, a resistance or hesitancy, I should say, in the investment community, because, as I said, this was a capital intensive project. The design stage, okay, we can do that on a shoestring, but then to actually build a downhole tool, etc., you can't do that. It costs a lot of money.
Yeah, of course.
So then when you approach investors, typically in Norway, a lot of the industrial investors would be from the oil and gas industry, etc. And our our sense was that a lot of them were comfortable with what they were doing. They know their field, they're experts in it, and they know how to benefit from it. And they're relatively risk averse to stepping into something totally new. And likewise, from the mining side, I would say really the mining community, investment community in Norway is very, very, very small. So there needs to be, in my opinion, that's actually probably the biggest challenge that Norway faces if it's going to try and pivot or build up its mining industry, is backing, the finance. And I actually, this applies to across the EU. The financial backing, the markets for getting raw materials production going is way behind Canada, Australia, London. There's no ecosystem for it, because it's not, I feel like the default is to have a look at at software companies or at innovation of maybe service companies, small service companies. But when you look at the amount of capital needed to get a mine running, to explore, to do prospecting, it's a totally different ballgame.
Of course.
And there also isn't the investor base. There isn't the people. There are very few people who turn to Europe or Norway to get a mine going, or to get heavy mining industry going. There are some companies that are established, in heavy industry, but the startup scenes and the things that are happening are, at least for the high capital projects outside Norway. And that I think that could be improved. And I think there was some good news that came out about that recently with the new critical raw materials report that was released last month. So hopefully things will change. But it's
So if we go back to transition from your old company to the Metamorphic, so could you please tell us about the team of the Metamorphic, how you established the team, if something about the team, the competence of the team itself?
Yeah, so we are made up of geologists. Basically the core members are, I'm a geological engineer. Morten often is by training a mining engineer, but by career he's I would say a geologist. He used to be the head geologist at Store Norske Kull, which is was a big coal mine in Svalbard, and he was the CEO of Store Norske Kull, which was kind of a subsidiary of Store Norske Kull. He was also the head of the mineral sector at the Geological Survey of Norway. So he's a senior. He's got a lot of experience. He's really well respected in the Norwegian geoscience community. We have another geologist who's doing his PhD here in Stavanger, and myself. So we're the three geologists that are kind of the core of the team. We have also as an advisor, Dag Øystein Eriksen. He's a professor at University of Oslo in hydrometallurgy. And then we have a network of other groups and individuals who we call on for expertise. But as I said, we have to do things on a shoestring. So we try to keep our team as small as possible at this stage. And we'll do that for as long as we can until we have the funds to pay and hire more people.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. But do you have business people who are doing business plan and so on?
No, this is still our biggest weakness. We do not have, and I think I haven't updated the website lately, but this is the constant. This is the skill set which is most needed, and I think for many businesses, it's very tricky to acquire. So we have some candidates, and we can also, we've begun to look at options of basically pay for performance, hiring externally companies. but we need people with the skills to raise lots of capital, and to make sure that we spend that capital wisely. That's the other thing. I think as an investor, you want to make sure your precious money is also spent and used wisely. So we have to build up that confidence for investors, and we have to have people on our team who can help us do that. That's our biggest challenge by far.
So actually, you're looking for two different type of people. You're looking for people who has good skills in business in order to get money from investor, and also you need looking for people who has good management or administration things in order to manage this money. To say to the people who will invest, we have the team who will take care of your money.
Yes, and it's a bit of a catch-22, because I think, with a large sum of money, you can always hire people. You can hire very good people.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier, I think, once you have the money. You can hire the best consultants. You can hire the best staff. Or at least very good staff, supposedly. That would make things a whole lot easier. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg problem. I think the management part is definitely also part of it's an important, very important part of the company structure.
Of course.
And it's difficult to hire a good manager or recruit a good manager if you can't pay them.
Of course. Of course.
This is a
point. This is the main point.
This is the point. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish you that you will pass this barrier soon. And I think maybe you can get a small support from one of the investors or so, and then from this small support you can go on. But what if you find a geologist who has good skills in management or good skills, business skills in general, so who can sell the idea for investors? Do you think this guy can make change?
Oh yes, yeah. I'm not. I think a lot has to do with the kind of skill set we're looking at, experience, and not necessarily formal education.
Okay.
So this person could be a former banker, a former biologist, but the necessary skill sets are, management. It's partly personality traits, partly education in terms of how the mining industry works, how commodity cycles work, how to raise funds, and it is. But I think still a lot of investors would like to have a business developer on board with a company who's already done this. It's because we're not talking about a software company, we're talking about lots of money. They really want someone with a lot of experience. I think that's my sense.
Okay.
So it could be a geologist, but it would have to be a geologist who's been around for a long time and seen this done and has been involved in raising capital.
Okay. Yeah.
I would.
I agree with you. But maybe the situation will be different if you already well-established company, big company. In this case, you can hire someone who has a bit of small experience, not so much. But to convince people, investor to spend money, you need someone with a high experience.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other thing is who we are targeting as investors. If we, I think that's certainly true for traditional mining investors. It may be that there's a market of startup investors who we could target, but and they may accept a younger management team. They may accept a young, up and coming, hardworking, motivated team. Um, but that the people funding that kind of management team would tend to be, I think, a different crowd from traditional mining investors because they're quite conservative. Yeah.
So if we return back a step for your old company and the new company that you are now, Metamorphic AS, that you are working with it now, do you think it will make different if you, during your PhD or your master thesis, got some courses that give you some skills in business, some skills in management, or something like this?
I think when it comes to business and management, I think a lot of the most important aspects, that certainly accounting and so on would be useful. Basic, but I did have that. I think actually what would be interesting is network building. I think a lot of the finance raising, et cetera, comes down to networking and knowing people, establishing a basis of trust. I think this is actually really important. And I think if I was involved in EIT and trying to get the raw material sector going, I think that would actually be a really important way of promoting investment, is to expose the investor community to individuals, to try and build networks between groups of people, between people with money and the innovators and founders and so on who need that money. So that because I think a lot comes down to trust. Do you trust this team to deliver? So yes, business school would be nice, but I think experience helps a lot. We've learned a lot. You learn a lot on the job, but just knowing people would be even more valuable.
But you have highlighted now networking. So you're saying that if there is some courses that give students, or we speak now on level of master students or so, during your master work, for example, if you got some courses that give you skills for networking, speak with the people, try to convince them, this will be a good add for your master.
Yes. I think what would be interesting would be to have, if I was, let's say, doing a master's course, I think it would be interesting to have, let's say, resource geology students or economic geology students enrolled in a course on, let's say, mining finance or something like that, which is also taken by MBA students or also taken by finance students, so that the people who, the network of people who are moving the money are also familiar with the people who are using the money.
Yes.
I think this is really, that would be really helpful. And in fact, content of the course would be valuable. That content would be valuable to both parties. So that's, I think that would be good.
Just to highlight this point. So if, say, for example, now you get some capital and you would like to hire a person, will you hire, for example, in this project in the north that you have some problem with this holy mountain? So will you hire someone who has deep experience in geology, or maybe someone who has some experience in geology plus maybe social interaction to interact with the people at the local people, or person who has multi-skill like biology or environmental, can understand environmental impact? So where you will go? Will you go focus on person who just focusing on one topic, or a person who has multi-skills?
Definitely someone with multiple skills, and preferably someone with interest to broaden their skill set, and an interest in, I think, yeah, for sure, not expertise, not in-depth expertise at this point. I think that comes later, once the project is more on a more solid footing.
Yeah. And here, before we go to my core question for this interview, I would like to highlight to the audience something. If you find this person, this geologist who has multi skills, I think he or she would help you to pass the barrier that you had in the old company or to the new company, because this geologist will speak, will have has the skills in order to speak with people, to solve a problem with you, or try to raise fund with you.
Mhm.
So I think if you find such people who has such skills, this will reduce expenses, right? And maybe reduce the time. So, right, what I am saying, or?
Yeah, I think that's right. I do think with the right skills, I mean, so much depends on the right skill set, but a lot also depends on the right, going back to this networking. And
Yes.
I think, you know, in a specific project within the context, let's say of Northern Norway, I think it's important to have a local base, and that makes it even that much more tricky, because you're refining the, you know, you're almost asking for an impossible position to be filled. So it is tricky, but I think definitely a broad skill set is what's needed. And then one way of doing that is broadening the team to have the skills, you know, from different people. Less time from one individual, but, you know, look for this person giving. Yep,
I agree. So returning to this point, in order to, we as academic, as universities, how we can help you in business sector to find these people? Do you think we need to establish sort of collaboration programs with business sector? We need to establish new courses?
Yeah,
what we should do in order to help
what you should do?
Yeah,
I think it would be interesting to the first, I think we touched on in the meeting 2 weeks ago. Having internships is I think really important for this sector. The other thing that I think would help would be having cross-disciplinary courses with people in the, well, actually across the spectrum. So I think interdisciplinary courses would help everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
So sitting in a class with sitting in a business class with a biologist who wants to start up a pharmaceutical company, and a MBA student and a geologist. Strangely enough, you know, the mechanics of pharmaceutical companies and pharmaceutical startups and mining have quite a lot in common. They both require a lot of capital. They're both, you know, they face similar problems financially. They both require scientists with a lot of expertise. So I think that kind of multidisciplinary course would be good for everybody.
Yeah. So actually you highlight two-way internship, and I think for internship you are bringing someone, in our case geologist, for example, who has good knowledge in geology, or at least basic knowledge in geology at the master level, and you bring him to the industry to work for a month during summer or so. And by this way he touches the industry somehow. He tries to get skills from them.
Yeah.
And also you highlight this in the interdisciplinary courses in order to get more skills. And maybe I can highlight here, saying before we go on this point, that now while we are speaking, there is a interdisciplinary course that is running by our project, and in this course we are teach master students a few things about big data, environmental science, innovation, circular economy, and how to establish your business.
Mhm.
So we try to do something, but we still at the beginning. We try to learn, and this is why we are speaking with you, in order to get your feedback, because my belief is that academia should help society, help business people, and we can do that from our side of view. We need to hear you. We need to go to society. We need to go to the business sector. We need to go to the governmental institute, ask them what you are needing from us in order to prepare the students for you. Yeah. So you have highlighted this opportunity. So, and the needs that we need this sort of cross-disciplinary courses. But what's about the challenge? Do you think we have challenge about to build such courses or such a
Do I think you have
program
a challenge to create them,
to
or
create and to run it? Because you can create a course, but you can't run it for some reason.
no? I don't. I think a lot of I don't know the situation within your university in terms of the competence, etc. But I do think that there shouldn't be a barrier to that, unless there shouldn't be a barrier to interdisciplinary courses. I can't foresee any. No.
But if I try to think with you loudly, just share the thinking together. Sometime when I speak with colleagues here and say we would like to create multidisciplinary courses or interdisciplinary courses, they may think, you say, okay, I can't go, for example, and create a geology course and business course because I don't have the competence in business course. And I try to keep to them, okay, you don't need to create this business part of the course. As you said, I can create my part as a geologist. I can create a good half of my course, which include business, geology, and I can go to a professor or academic who are in the business field, and he try to build his part.
Yeah.
And we can share the course together, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot. One of the most illuminating things about being in a startup, or doing things yourself, is that you can learn an awful lot by doing things. And I think if I was to kind of structure a course to promote, let's say, entrepreneurship, I would have the students literally start a company. I would have them do the whole process. And I think that's the best way. And that can be very interdisciplinary, because that's the way the real economy works. And the real economy is very interdisciplinary. So I don't see any, I think students, especially students of today, are quite well trained in teaching themselves. And I think they would run with it. They would run with a program where they are supposed to come up with an idea for a business and teach themselves what they need, and go to a professor in the business school if they have questions about business, go and ask accountants, as long as the resources are there for them. I think leveraging the ability to teach yourself with a goal, with a purpose, would take things quite far. And I think it would be quite a different course from traditional, let's say, almost seemingly purposeless courses. Like if you take a class in, I mean, I'm a physical scientist and I did enjoy calculus, but I think for a lot of students, calculus is just a thing to do and they'll never use it again. And it's quite boring. But if you say, okay, we're going to start a class and we're going to teach ourselves, we're going to learn all the legal stuff that we need to know, we're going to learn if it's going to make money, et cetera, it becomes a little bit more interesting, a little bit more valuable, I think. So I would really push for that kind of scenario where they just have to sink or swim, basically. And I think it teaches good life skills also.
Yeah, actually, I would like to highlight something. I think you are good to read the what in my head. So you actually, this course that I told you about, which is run parallel to our session today, actually is about this. So it's, you can't in one course give them everything. You can't give them big data, environmental science, business, innovation, but you give them sort of superficial information that allows them to go and try to teach themselves by themselves.
Yeah.
And parallel to that, we run other courses which give the students deep knowledge in the 5 topics.
Yeah.
So I think you touch this point very well. So and I think also this is what we are doing here, because our audience are professors and people who are working in academia, who are designing courses, and the main target of this interview and other interview is to show to them what is the need in order to find. For example, I had an interview a couple days ago, and the person who I have interviewed him, he said that it will be good if we can create course that combine mathematics and electronics, because he do some report things plus programming. And now you highlight things related to networking. Networking is important. And another person highlights the importance of management. So all of these topics that we need to cover in our courses somehow, not in deep, but at least give the students the minimum amount of knowledge that allows them to go and teach themselves by themselves.
Yeah.
So this is what I think. But from your point of view, if we go to the second point, which is the internship, I know I am out of the time, right? Maybe just two minutes more. Yeah, about the internship. Do you think there is a sort of challenge to create such program?
I don't know. I guess I think internship programs are very valuable for companies and for universities and for students. They're sort of a win-win-win-win scenarios.
Situations, yeah.
I other than politics, it's hard to see a problem with them. Unless there are difficulties within the university structure itself, I don't see too many challenges. No.
Yep. Yeah, really. Also, I would like to reflect on that before I thank you for this interesting, because for internship, we hope within our program with Cloud Earth program to try to connect with companies, different companies that work in the field that we are interested in: big data, environmental science, sustainability, circular economy, in order to give us like scholarships or internship. And we will put this internship on our website and make it available for our students. And our students here, we are looking for 5 countries: Norway, England, Austria, Spain, and Bulgaria, and actually Slovenia with us.
Okay.
So we hope to reach to this point at some stage. Maybe
Fantastic. That'd be
yeah,
really good.
I do hope so, that we will have like a pool with scholarships and internship, and we allow it to the student to choose from it. And this will not be only in one country, it will be in 6 different countries. So this also will give sort of the international feeling. So maybe you are a student in Norway and you will study in or get an internship in England, or student from Spain, you will travel to Austria to do your scholarship or your internship there. Yeah, I think that's all from my side. I would like to thank you very much for this interesting discussion. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you all the success
Thank you.
to find the good sponsorship, the guy who can
Yeah,
invest,
thank you very much.
the guy who can invest a bit in order to
Yeah.
just move your metamorphic AS forward.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Tamar.
You're welcome.
Okay, cheers.
Bye bye.
Thank you very much. Bye.